Hello and welcome to Econ 100 Pro. This is Gunjot Kaur, your host. Greetings to all of our economic enthusiasts this morning. Today we have the privilege of chatting with Professor Milton Friedman, another significant economist of the 20th century, but one with ideas completely in contrast to Mr. Keynes, our last guest. We appreciate you being here, Professor Friedman.
Thank you, Gunjot. It's a pleasure to be here. I must say, it's always exciting to discuss how ideas about free markets and limited government remain relevant, even in today's digital and global economy.
Speaking of today's economy, you were a complete supporter of free markets and little government involvement, Professor Friedman. Do you still believe that markets should be allowed to self regulate in the current 2025 economy with growing inflation and worldwide instability?
Absolutely, Gunjot. I've always maintained that markets are far more efficient than governments at allocating resources. Even in 2025, with inflation and global uncertainty, heavy handed intervention often does more harm than good. The key is to maintain a stable monetary framework. Central banks can provide predictability without trying to micromanage every market. Too much intervention distorts prices, which are the language markets use to coordinate economic activity. If you want, I can give a quick example from today's digital economy.
Well, yes, please. I believe our young learners today would love a first hand example from a great economist as yourself.
Certainly. Take online shopping and digital platforms, Amazon, Alibaba, and similar marketplaces. Prices, product availability, and delivery times are constantly adjusting based on supply and demand. No government planner could respond that quickly or efficiently. When consumers want a product, the market signals producers to supply more. When demand falls, prices drop and resources shift elsewhere. If a government tried to fix prices or dictate what's produced, we'd see shortages, surpluses, or wasted resources, just as we saw historically in centrally planned economies. The lesson is simple. Even with today's technology and global trade, markets self-regulate far better than bureaucrats ever could.
Well, Mr. Friedman, I believe this example would help a lot of us to get our ideas in line and perspectives to change. Speaking of digital era, rapid data-driven trade and new kinds of currencies like cryptocurrencies have been made possible in this era. Would you consider such market innovations to be a danger to the economy, or would you support embracing them?
I would support embracing them, Gunjot, but cautiously. Innovations like cryptocurrencies and data-driven trading are simply new ways for markets to function. They can increase efficiency, lower transaction costs, and expand choice. The danger comes not from the technology itself, but from government overregulation or attempts to control it too tightly. At the same time, stability is essential. Cryptocurrencies, for instance, are highly volatile, so they can't replace stable money unless properly managed. But as long as people understand the risks and the government doesn't distort the market, these innovations can be a positive force for economic freedom and growth. If you want, I can give a concrete 2025 example of how crypto or digital payments are influencing markets today.
We would absolutely love that, but due to the short span of your valuable time we have today, I think we'll have to move on to the next topic. But I would have all your opinions following this session. Now, I would like to talk about economists with contrasting views with yourself. Keynes' economics is referred to by Ferreira and the Pola as a model science, but also economics as an objective, empirical field. How would you describe your own philosophical underpinnings of economics and how they diverge from Keynes' moral philosophy?
Yes, Gunjot. I've always seen economics as a positive, empirical science. focused on cause and effect, not on moral judgments. My concern has been with what actually works in the real world, not what ought to work according to some ethical standard. Keynes, by contrast, often emphasized government intervention to achieve socially desirable outcomes: full employment, economic stability, or wealth redistribution. I worry that such moralizing leads to policies that distort incentives and reduce freedom. In my view, the guiding principle should be individual choice. People know their own interests better than bureaucrats ever could. In short, I focus on predicting outcomes and designing systems that allow voluntary exchange, while Keynes focused more on steering the economy toward what he considered the right outcome.
Well, that's a very good answer. Now, speaking of the markets, pure free market systems, according to many economists, increase equal distribution of wealth. How would you react to people who think that the wealthiest profit from unregulated capitalism while the others are left behind?
I would say that free markets do not promise absolute equality, but they do create far more opportunities and raise overall living standards than any government-controlled system. Wealth disparities reflect differences in skills, effort, and choices, but markets allow everyone the chance to improve their situation. Attempts to forcibly redistribute wealth often reduce incentives, slow growth, and ultimately harm those they intend to help.
Well, now I would like to move to the topic, which is a global conversation these days. Many countries employed large funding programs to keep economies surviving during the recent COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Friedman. What particular tactics would you have used instead if you had been in charge?
I would have focused on keeping monetary policy stable and predictable rather than flooding the economy with government spending. Temporary relief could be provided directly to individuals, but broad programs that distort markets risk long-term inflation and inefficiency. The key is to support people without interfering with the natural allocation of resources.
Well, now I would like to get to our hit question. That would be major contradiction between you and Keynes. Some argue that significant government intervention in the resource sector markets is necessary in regard to climate change. Do you believe that market systems might resolve these problems more effectively, or would you be in favor of state-led environmental policies?
I believe markets can play a powerful role if the right incentives are in place. Property rights, pricing carbon, or tradable permits allow firms and individuals to respond efficiently. Direct state control often leads to waste and misallocation. So, I favor market-based solutions over heavy-handed government mandates.
Could you elaborate with an example for our sustainable-minded individuals?
Certainly. Consider carbon pricing or cap-and-trade systems. The government sets a limit on total emissions, but companies can buy and sell permits. This creates a financial incentive to reduce pollution efficiently. Those who can cut emissions cheaply do so, while others pay for permits. The result is lower overall emissions at minimal economic cost, harnessing market forces rather than relying on rigid government mandates.
Well, that is a strong example, sir. The job market is changing due to automation and artificial intelligence. Would you support for new policy changes for the workers who are jobless? Or would you continue to support the notion that technological advancement eventually helps everyone?
I would continue to support the notion that technological advancement ultimately benefits society, Gunjot. While automation and artificial intelligence may displace certain jobs in the short term, they also create new opportunities, increase productivity, and reduce costs for consumers. The key is to focus on policies that help workers adapt through education, retraining, and geographic or occupational mobility, rather than attempting to halt or slow technological progress. Intervening too heavily to protect specific jobs can stifle innovation, reduce economic growth, and ultimately make society poorer, including those the policies intend to help. In the long run, a dynamic economy driven by innovation offers more opportunities and higher living standards for all.
Well, that is something we must think about. So, coming to the end of our podcast and our ultimate question, I ask all our intellectuals, what guidance would you offer our young economists in 2025 who want to contribute significantly to the rapidly evolving global economy of today?
I would tell them to focus on understanding how real-world incentives drive behavior. Gunjot. Study markets carefully, rely on empirical evidence, and always question the effects of government intervention. Embrace innovation, be open to new technologies, and remember that freedom, economic and personal, is the foundation for growth and prosperity. Most importantly, think independently and don't let prevailing trends dictate what you accept as right in economics.
Well, that is an inspirational answer. So, concluding the educational session for today, thank you, Mr. Keynes, for your time and our stimulating conversation. Your concept of economics still challenges us and guides us today.
It's been a pleasure to discuss these ideas with you and your audience. I hope our conversation encourages young minds to think critically about freedom, markets, and the role of government in shaping
Hello and
prosperity.
welcome to Econ 100 Pro. This is Gunjot Kaur, your host. Greetings to